If you're moving to Baton Rouge, you've got a decision to make. Do you want to live in the city or do you want to live in the suburbs? That's what we're talking about in this video. We're going to be going over pros and cons of living in the suburbs versus the city. Let's go. Okay, let's talk about this. But first, this is Living in Louisiana, where we talk everything you need to know when it comes to what it's like moving to or living in the greater Baton Rouge area. I'm Sean Ramos, I'm a local realtor in the area, and I help a lot of people move locally here, but I also specialize in helping people like you relocate from out of state and make the process as smooth as possible. So if you think you're gonna be making a move anytime in the near future, I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, in this video, we're gonna be talking about pros and cons of living in the suburbs versus the city. And since I tend to be a pretty positive guy, let's start with the pros. Pro number one of living in the suburbs is you can get more house for your money. In some of the suburban areas like Livingston and Ascension Parish, in cities like Zachary and Central, you'll find that you'll often get bigger houses with bigger yards and new construction for the same price or less even than buying in Baton Rouge. So in Baton Rouge, you're typically paying more per square foot, especially in some of the more desirable areas like South Downs, Mid-City, and the Garden District. So let's look at a comparison. This house in the Garden District is listed for $352,000. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with 1,540 square feet. And you can look at this house in the Highlandia subdivision in Watson. This is a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house, 2,200 square feet, brand new construction, and the base price for that one starts in the 330s. So living in the suburbs could be a great option for people with growing families or those move-up buyers who are looking for more space and maybe even something like a workshop. Pro number two of living in the suburbs, lower property taxes. So your total tax bill is a combination of city and parish taxes, plus any special district millages. And those will vary depending on the specific location. But on average, those suburban parishes like Livingston and Ascension Parish will have a lower effective tax rate than East Baton Rouge Parish. But home prices also have a big effect on those property taxes. So in areas of Ascension Parish, homes can get pretty pricey, and your tax bill can actually be higher out there than it is in Baton Rouge. So when you look at places like Zachary, Central, and now St. George more recently, they broke away from Baton Rouge to incorporate and form their own cities. And one of the things that I heard was that they thought the taxes were too high and they didn't like the way that the parish was spending that tax money. So that lower tax burden adds up year after year, and it really helps out buyers with a lower monthly payment. Baton Rouge residents can certainly get hit with higher assessments and city taxes, especially in neighborhoods where there are special tax districts. So here's another comparison. You got this house on River Drive in Trails End subdivision. The house sold for $510,000, and when I looked up the property taxes, they were $7,000 a year. Compare that to this house in Ascension Parish on Westlake Drive in Jefferson Crossing subdivision. It sold for $500,000. When I looked up the taxes for that one, it was only $3,000 a year. I mean, you do the math on that, that's a $330 a month difference in your payment. So that can be a huge factor. Okay, so pro number three of living in the suburbs, you tend to have higher rated public schools. Suburbs like Zachary, Central, parts of Livingston Parish consistently rank higher in statewide education scores. And you've got East Baton Rouge Parish schools, which often lag behind. So there are many families in Baton Rouge who end up going the private education route, which can be $10,000 to $20,000 per year per kid. As a matter of fact, all of the friends that I can think of that live in Baton Rouge have their kids in private schools. So for buyers with children, this is typically one of the biggest factors when they're deciding where they want to live. Pro number four of living in the suburbs is just a quieter, slower pace of life. Suburban living typically means less noise, less traffic, just a more laid-back lifestyle. So you're probably not hearing as many sirens at night, or probably not dealing with as much traffic as in the city. So a lot of people will choose the suburbs over living in Baton Rouge just for that peace of mind, especially when they have kids or they're just looking to get rid of that hustle of living in the city. Pro number five of living in the suburbs is just statistically safer. Many of the surrounding suburban areas have lower crime rates and deal with less things like homelessness and panhandling. So we live in Watson, but my wife and kids are constantly in Baton Rouge. And they know there are just certain areas where you don't even stop for gas. And not that you have to worry about getting robbed or anything like that, but I don't even want to be put in a situation where some strange person is coming up to him asking him for money. There's this one guy in Baton Rouge, and there's a whole Facebook group built around him called Where's Kevin? But everybody knows him as a guy who constantly is out every day approaching people for money And they say that he tends to get a little more aggressive with women and older people that he knows he can take advantage of. So even though my wife loves to go out to Baton Rouge for all sorts of things, she does feel safer for things like stopping for gas when she's closer to home. In Baton Rouge, there are certain areas that do face more safety concerns. As a real estate agent, I have to be really careful on what I say and don't say. And people will ask me all the time, which areas to avoid. So one of the tools that I point them to online is a website like Neighborhood Scout. You can search an area and they'll actually show you a crime map. So you can really look that over and decide like what your level of comfortability is with different areas. So it's not universal, but the perception is that it's safer in the suburbs than it is in the city. That's usually a pretty big driver of people deciding to move out to the suburbs. Hey guys, if you're still with me, just a quick reminder that I am a licensed realtor in the greater Baton Rouge area. As much as I do love making these videos for you guys, what I really love is to help you with your real estate needs. So that number, that email address on your screen, that's how you can reach out to me, and it's also going to be in the description. I'm always happy to answer any questions you have and do whatever I can do to help make your move as smooth as possible when you're coming to Baton Rouge. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, living in the suburbs has its advantages, but it's not all positive. Let's talk about some of the cons now. Con number one of living in the suburbs, you have longer commutes. So getting into Baton Rouge to go to work or LSU or any of the events that are happening in the city can be a haul depending on where you're coming from. Traffic on I-12 or I-10 or even Highway 190 can turn a 15-minute drive into a 45-minute drive pretty easily. So if you're working in Baton Rouge and making that commute on a daily basis, that can wear on you. Con number two of living in the suburbs, there's less to do nearby. So even as the suburbs continue to grow and grow, you just don't have the same density of restaurants and nightlife or shopping and events that Baton Rouge does. So you're not just running out right down the street for the most part to see live music or go to any of the festivals that happen to be going on at the time. So if that kind of energy is important to you, then you may want to consider living in the city. Con number three of living in the suburbs, there are fewer job opportunities nearby. So this isn't universal either, but the majority of the larger companies are going to be in Baton Rouge. So living further out means you're dealing with that commute on a daily basis, unless you work remote. Suburbs just tend to have fewer white collar office jobs nearby. So make sure that if you're driving into Baton Rouge from the suburbs every day, you've got some form of entertainment while you're just sitting on the interstate. Con number four of living in the suburbs, there's limited walkability. The suburban areas are definitely more car centric. You're gonna be driving everywhere you go, whether it's to a restaurant, to a gym, coffee shop, grocery store, wherever you're going. But if you live in some of the more walkable areas of Baton Rouge, like mid-city or downtown, there are gonna be multiple restaurants, bars, and other businesses within walking or biking distance. I actually met recently with a former client who I helped relocate here from Massachusetts. We met at a coffee shop on Government Street in mid-city, and he actually rode his bike from his house, where for me, it was almost a 45-minute drive to get there. Okay, con number five of living in the suburbs, there are fewer medical and specialty services. So the suburbs tend to have more smaller clinics and urgent cares, but most of the big major hospitals are going to be found in Baton Rouge. Even though there are a lot of expansions going on where Baton Rouge General, Our Lady of the Lake, and some of those bigger hospitals are expanding into Livingston and Ascension Parish, they don't offer the same services there always as they do in Baton Rouge. See all the times that an ambulance will pass up an emergency room out in Livingston Parish to get to Baton Rouge. As a matter of fact, I had that experience myself. I was in a motorcycle wreck a little while back, and when the ambulance came and got me, we literally drove by an emergency room that was on the same road that my wreck was on to get to Our Lady of the Lake on Essen Lane in Baton Rouge. So if you have ongoing medical needs or you just want quick access to medical care, this is definitely something you'll want to consider. I've got another client who built a house in St. George that works at one of the major hospitals, and his job gets him called into work all the time. So even though when you look on a map, it's not that far of a drive, depending on the traffic situation, it can take a little while to get there. So they're actually already considering making a move to get closer to work. Okay, so those are some of the pros and cons of living in the suburbs versus the city. If you're making that decision for yourself, hopefully this helped. But if you're looking to get a little more familiar with the areas, I actually created a Baton Rouge relocation guide. There's gonna be a link in the description where you can get a copy of that. And again, if you know you're gonna make that move at some point, even if it's not today, all my contact information is on your screen right now. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here to be a resource for you for anything you need when it comes to making the move to the greater Baton Rouge area. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, even if you're not ready yet. And guys, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the future videos we put out. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next video.